let me know in the Google Hangouts chat if you cannot see the presentation where it says welcome and asks you to join the slido.com event information. Okay, I'm going to wait for 20 to 30 more seconds so that we are sure that everyone can see the presentation screen. All right, I think the screen sharing part works. So let's begin. It's 6:05. As people keep coming in, let's let them in. But for now, thank you everyone for turning off your audio. That's really nice of you. I was worried that we would be constantly interrupted, but this is awesome. Please keep your audio off. We are going to be using slido.com to interact with everyone in the audience. I will just briefly go over how it works, but for now, let's just start the event. So this is the agenda today. Once again, let me know if you cannot look at what I'm presenting. So we have introductions, and we're going to look through how Slido works. From 6:15, we are going to be speaking with our guest, whom we will introduce very shortly. And finally, at 6:45, we have audience question. If you have some question that does not fit in Slido, you shouldn't. Slido is pretty concise. You should be able to do everything on there. But if not, let's set aside the 15 minutes for audience Q&A. So that's the agenda. Okay, and just so you know, this event is being recorded. Everything that is being shared on the screen that you see here on the screen will be recorded. So do not share your screen if you're not one of the hosts or our guests. Do not expose any information that you do not want to be on the screen. If you decide to present, you shouldn't, but still. So just a fair warning to everybody again. We have some new participants. I just wanted to inform them that this event is being recorded. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so I want to start with a quick introduction to Slido.com. So basically, this is for audience interaction. If you feel too shy to ask a question, or you feel you want to interrupt, but you don't feel like you should, then it's a great idea to post your question on Slido.com. Basically, what you do is you open a browser. If you're on a laptop, open your browser, or if you're using your mobile phone, go ahead and either install the app, slido.com, or go to the browser, go to slido.com, and this here is our event code. It's 17597. That's the event code, and you should be able to see the event title, Fireside Chat number 1. As soon as you successfully do steps 1, 2, and 3, you should be able to see an empty page where I just posted a really... Okay, so I'm gonna okay. Please don't take offense if I mute you. I'm just trying to do some host management. So if one of you does not know, has not yet been on Slido, this would be a good time to start logging on it. Use a browser or install the app on your phone and go to Slido. Simply, and you don't have to log in, you don't have to do anything, just enter the event code. you should be able to see the event name, which is Fireside Chat number 1. And hopefully you also see the list of questions, or at least one question. Post a message here on the Hangouts message bar. If you don't know, if you cannot figure it out, I can help you. I'm gonna wait 5 seconds. If I don't see anything on the message bar, I just move on. Oh, okay, just a minute, I see something. Yes, so the event is called Fireside Chat number 1. That's the name of the event. It's a public event. If you're there, then you're at the right place. Thank you. So on your screen, you must have seen the 3 circles pop up. So basically, anybody can ask a question. And if 2 or 3 other people like the question that this person has asked, you can just upvote it. Depending on how many upvotes each question has, that particular question gets highlighted and goes to the top. So this way we can crowdsource the most popular questions, and we can answer those questions first before moving on to the least popular ones. Oh, does anyone else get the message that it doesn't exist? Let me just quickly pop over. Give me a minute.
I was able to get in. Can you just double check your code again, Sid?
Okay, you should begin to start. You should be seeing everything now. Someone wants me to shut up and start the presentation, so I'll just quickly go over just one more thing. Polls. We want to make sure that you know how the polls work. This is the last boring bit, I assure you. So near the Q&A section right here, you should have something called polls. And just click on it. Just
It looks like someone muted you, Deepika.
all right, I think I'm back. Nobody can keep me down. Anyway, so I'm gonna make the live poll. Is everyone able to see the first poll, basically? Have you ever attended an event before? I'm gonna wait till we reach at least 20 here, so that I know some person, at least 50% of the audience has Slido working. So we are at 15 right now. Just, if you want to get over this part, do a vote quickly. All right, I think we are at 20, so good job, everybody. Thanks for playing along. I'm just gonna go ahead and introduce our hosts for the night. So we have 3 hosts. Basically, they are Anam, Claire, and Asha. Anam is our events lead, Claire is our datathon lead, and Asha is our data cleansing co-lead. So they will be asking the questions, and Russell will be chatting with them, explaining how he built this awesome dashboard. Having said that, Russell, who is he? If you don't know, now's a good time. So he's a CTO at SharpestMinds. His passions are self-learning, startups, future of work and education, machine learning, and writing about his passions. So if you want to know more about him, Google him. You should easily land at his website. Take a look at it. Contact him if you want to talk with him. He's very approachable. And his hobbies are writing and deploying full stack machine learning projects. As a fun fact, he has made a total of 2,500 GitHub contributions in 2019. That is definitely not a measure of you shouldn't take that it's a measure of anybody's technical capability, but still, I thought that was a cool factoid to have about our guest. And having said that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our hosts and our guest. So good luck. Post your questions on Slido, and I'm out.
Okay, I'll take over from Deepika now. She's already introduced Russell. Russell gets to say hi now.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
And thank you for joining us, Russell. I mean, where else would you be in these times anyways, right? So.
Yeah, I came a long way to get here.
Okay, just I'll start off short. Just if you just want to tell us, so you are the CTO at SharpestMinds. If you just want to tell us more about it, how you got involved, and yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been at SharpestMinds just over 3 years now. It was sort of my first job after leaving grad school. I was doing a PhD in physics, which I ended up not liking and dropping out. And the folks at SharpestMinds I knew through U of T, also physicists, former physicists, and they helped me land my first job, which was a short contracting job doing some programming work. And that's when I found out I love to work with software. Experimental physics might not be for me, but I do love writing code. And eventually I got, an offer from SharpestMinds, joined the team. We actually went through Y Combinator in the winter of 2018.
Oh.
And it was during our time in Silicon Valley that I took on the CTO role. And that's sort of a glorified title, since we're a 4-person team as of this week, actually. It basically means I'm the sole developer. I'm doing all the sort of the technical stuff for SharpestMinds. And to give you the quick pitch, we are a platform for mentorships, specifically in data science and related fields. So the idea is we help aspiring data scientists, data analysts, machine learning engineers kickstart their careers by helping them find mentors, sort of experienced folks in the fields who can coach them one-on-one, help them build up their technical skills, get a job, all for free, in exchange for a share of their salary for the first year. So all the mentorships are based on what's called income share agreements. And that's what we've been doing for the past year and a half, and it's going pretty well.
Okay, thank you. And over to Claire.
Hi, Russell. We all know you are building a very interesting project right now that is using Ontario COVID-19 website data and building a very useful and insightful dashboard for everyone to get insights of the daily changes in terms of the cases we have. Can you talk a little bit of the motivation of why you start building this dashboard and why you started this project?
Totally. So, coronavirus has been in the news for what seems like forever now, but it was only a month ago where we just had a handful of cases here in Ontario. And I found myself constantly checking Ontario's website, where they were posting the numbers every day, but they weren't posting the history. Every day they would just have the static snapshot. And some of the key things you need to know about a pandemic like this is not just the total number, but the growth rate, right? If this thing's growing exponentially, that's super important, even if they're just small numbers. So just out of necessity, I was like, I need to see this plot. And actually, maybe now's a good time to share my screen and walk you through it.
Yeah, for sure. Will be great. We're all here for this.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, is my screen visible?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least I can see your screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I've been checking this website, which still is where the government of Ontario is posting the sort of updates for coronavirus type stats. And visiting now, you see actually a pretty detailed breakdown. And in fact, now I can navigate here and see a nice actual dashboard with some key stats and even download the data. But this is pretty recent development. So, a couple of weeks ago when I wanted to learn more, there was just a table here with these 4 numbers, and that's it. And they would update it daily, but the numbers from yesterday would just vanish, right? So it was really hard to visualize, like, what's the growth rate? What are the trends? What's going on here? And I had trouble finding that anywhere else on the internet. So I decided to build something myself. So I had to go actually to Internet Archive and type this website in and manually get the numbers for previous days. So I had to build a scraper for this website, as well as manually populate some historical trends. And threw it all in a MongoDB database and used one of my favorite analytics tools, open source software called Metabase, to throw together this dashboard to essentially track Ontario's COVID-19 numbers over time. What started with basically just this plot showing the total confirmed cases over time. But I slowly added to it, and people kept requesting more information, and this got a lot more views than I expected. And so I leaned into it a bit. And essentially all the data here is from a single table, which is just like, for each day, Ontario is saying, here's how many positive test results we've had, here's how many deaths, here's how many folks have recovered, and here are the total number of tests. And so from that, I've built just a summary of what the latest numbers are, and as well as plots over time showing total cases, new cases, total cases on a log scale, which helps you visualize the growth rate a lot better, as well as deaths and new deaths. And one of the most important numbers, I think, is the testing numbers. And so when you look at data from other countries, the ones who've handled this crisis the best are the ones that just like tested people on a mass scale. So I feel like this is one of the numbers that needs to be in the public eye a lot more than just the number of cases reported each day. It's like, well, it really matters how many people we're testing. And so this is something I've been trying to highlight and share with folks. Is like, look, if Ontario needs to take this seriously, they need to be testing more people. And here's where we're at with that right now. And so for a while, the testing was really lacking, and there was this increasing backlog of tests awaiting results. Around March 26th, it hit almost 11,000. And so clearly, like, testing capacity in Ontario was lacking. But it's actually started to increase a lot. So the tests per day now have been hovering around 5,000. But the Ministry of Health has said their goal is to hit 17,000 tests a day. And so now with this dashboard, I can easily track, like, are they actually hitting that goal? And it seems like they might be on pace to do it. Time will tell. But what we want to see is these daily tests numbers go up. There's a bit of an anomaly here. That's because around on March 29th, Ontario changed the way they were reporting things. And I think just a lot of results got reported at once and caused this spike in the plot. So that's really the gist of it. They're not doing anything that special. If you guys have specific questions about any of these plots, I can walk you through it. Here I'm just plotting of all the tests that have been performed. These are the percents that are positive. And the same thing on a daily scale. Now, something that's been in the news lately a bit and troubling me is that these numbers Ontario is reporting, the total tests, confirmed cases, etc., they're updating it at 10:30 a.m. every day, but with data that was reported the previous day at 4 p.m. So what we're seeing is a snapshot of yesterday's numbers, only those numbers that were reported before 4 p.m. And many, so basically Ontario's divided into 30 to 40 public health units. So these are stats, by the way, that I knew nothing about when I started. All I wanted to see was this plot of cases over time. But I've learned a lot about basically how Ontario organizes their data, at least their health data a bit. And so you've got all these different public health agencies or public health units responsible for their own data collection and data reporting, and then they submit that to some combined system, and that's where Ontario plucks the numbers from. And so what we're seeing now is these numbers are evolving so rapidly and at different paces in different areas of Ontario. So sometimes the numbers reported by a public health unit are different than the ones here reported by Ontario. And I think it's because there's that lag between the public health unit reporting their numbers and Ontario finally compiling those and presenting them on their website. And so something I'm hoping to do in the future, and maybe some of you can help me out with this, is build scrapers for each individual public health unit and start getting the numbers from there, because many are also reporting their testing results, their total deaths, and other things like percent hospitalized, etc. And so just recently I've started trying to plot the cases broken down by the public health unit. And so that's where I'm at now with this. Yeah, that's the summary of this. I started just a hobby project just because I wanted to see this plot, but surprisingly, a lot of people found this useful and are checking it on a regular basis. So the odd times when Ontario updated their website and my scripts broke, like I would get a handful of emails and messages on Twitter going like, hey man, like your dashboard's great, but it's broken. Like, can you fix it please? And so that's been a novel experience for me. Honestly, I didn't expect anyone to be using this. So I'm taking that responsibility seriously. I've done my best to keep it accurate, knowing that people are relying on this for their information.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting dashboard for everyone to explore the daily status. I would pass the question to Asha right now.
Yeah, sure. I personally use this dashboard, Russell. Thank you so much for doing this. I think when I see the slider, there is also a popular question saying that why MongoDB, why Metabase? I think most of us from data analysts or data science background, we are stick to standard tools. So if you just explain us what was your thought process in choosing MongoDB or Metabase and all that stuff, it would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have a great reason for MongoDB other than it's what I'm most comfortable with. It's the database I started with when I was first starting out. And I just generally find it easier to use personally. And I think if you're going to build a hobby project and you want to get something out quick, it's best to use the tools you're comfortable with. Similarly with Metabase, though, I think Metabase is an extremely great product. And in a minute, I could walk you through a quick demo of how easy it is to spin up a dashboard like this with it.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, sure. So, by the way, I don't work for Metabase, but they are an open source software. It's something we've been recently using at SharpestMinds for our own data, and I'm a big fan. So, yeah, let's see if this works. Metabase.com. I'm going to deploy on Heroku, my sort of go-to platform when I want to spin up an MVP. And so Metabase has this beautiful like one-click deploy button. I'll just give this a name, Data for Good Demo. And so what this is doing is just, grabbing the code from Metabase and deploying it on a Heroku server. just like that. So here we go, dataforgood.demo.herokuapp.com. It's going to prompt me for some information. So essentially, I'll just have to add some login info and then connect it to a database. So while that's spinning up, by the way, I'm already logged into Heroku. Great platform. You can sort of get your hobby projects live for very little cost very quickly. Highly recommend using it for hobby projects. And or production projects, actually. SharpestMinds web app is deployed with Heroku as well. So I've got a demo script to actually scrape the data we need. So I'm just going to quickly add a MLab MongoDB add-on. So I'm just going to spin up a sandbox DB to use. Okay, so Metabase is setting up, almost there. So when I added that that MLab add-on, it created basically an environment variable with the Mongo URI. So I'm just going to copy that, and I've got a script here that I can share later. But I'm going to, I'll do a quick walkthrough. So essentially, the data now, so in the early days, I had to scrape this from an HTML document, but like recently, Ontario has been publishing this data in a nice downloadable CSV format. So you can download it here. I can share links to this after as well. So that's what this URL, it's just a URL pointing to that CSV. So we just want to download it, read it, and sync it with the DB. So that's what this script does. So let's just set my Mongo URI and sync with the DB. Good thing I tried this earlier. I'm ready for this error. Okay. So basically, I took this data, which is essentially what I've been using for this dashboard I just walked you through, but it's got the reported date and the number of confirmed cases, deaths, and like total tests done, etc., and a few other numbers. But all I'm using right now for this demo is just the total cases, total tests, and total deaths. So Metabase should be good to go. Here we go. Let's get started. Okay. So just a demo, so I'm not following good practices here. Okay. Now, Metabase is a great tool because probably it's got the DB drivers you need. It's got a lot of different options, including MongoDB. Now I'm going to violate best practices a bit here and basically be sharing my Mongo URI, something you probably shouldn't do. So MLab created this connection string, but Metabase is asking for first just a name, the host, which is this. Sorry, this isn't very exciting, but I just want to show you how like easy it was to spin up. So all my details of my database, and hopefully, boom, we're connected. So here is my data that I just uploaded.
Mm-hmm.
So nice thing about Metabase is I don't have to do like any coding now. I can just like click on visualization, and if there's anything to plot, I can create plots. So I've got a reported at with the date, and I've got, say, total cases or total deaths, total tests. I can save something like this. Let's say total tests, and add it to a dashboard. So let's call it data for good demo. So basically, Metabase lets you build these dashboards. So you can ask questions, create plots, and then add as many as you want to a dashboard, basically a collection of plots. And of course, I can do a lot of things with changing, labels, titles, plot different formats, etc. Now, just one last thing is I want to share this database, public sharing enabled. Right. So it's got this great feature. If I want to share, I can enable sharing, and I've got a public link to share this with the public. And so that's essentially what I did to create my dashboard. It also, you can embed it, which is what I ended up doing. And so that's that. This is actually a live URL now that you could probably all visit. It's not a pretty one, but that's all it takes.
Yeah, it was really quick to just get your database out, pull the data, and then put to a dashboard. Considering the amount of mundane work that goes on with the regular, infrastructure, this is like pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So Metabase, great tool. It helped that the data was compiled already in a CSV. So a lot of the struggles early on with this dashboard was scraping the website, and they kept changing their format. And so that caused some headaches, but it's been nice to see Ontario push towards sharing their data in, readable formats.
Yeah, that's true. One more question is, apart from the data that Ontario is sharing right now, what other data from your perspective it would be important or would add value, let's say, for example, to see if the lockdown was working? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, good point. So essentially, what we want to see is the daily new cases go down. But some of the data that's been missing are things like, how many of these patients are in ICU, or how many need ventilators, and what do those numbers look like? Mm-hmm. As well as things like, what are the demographics of the people being tested and things like that. And that for a long time was actually lacking, but recently there's another related data set of confirmed cases. Mm-hmm. And this was something Ontario was publishing for a while, but it was very frustrating because a lot of the cases were just pending. So there just was a lot of data missing, but they've taken some time recently to compile a CSV. At least they've got the last 2,700 or the first 2,793 cases here with a lot more detail, like the age, the gender, the location of each health unit that the person was reported at, and a few other things. So I actually haven't played much with this CSV yet, but it's there ready to download, and I encourage anyone to go explore the data and see if you can get any insights.
Yeah, thanks, Russell, for sharing this. This data definitely looks much richer. Yeah. And I'll like to pass it on to Anam. Anam, are you there?
Sorry, I was on mute. I was trying to look for the button. No, thanks, Russell. For somebody like me who doesn't have a lot of experience with Metabase or doesn't really understand it, like, would you recommend any resources people could use to learn these tools, or you think like Metabase itself is simple enough for beginners to start as well?
I think it's pretty simple. I believe on their website they've got a lot of documentation and things. And of course, if you've already got something,
Okay.
some other tool you're comfortable with, like by all means, go for it. One thing I love about Metabase is that one click deploy on Heroku. But generally, it's pretty easy once you spin it up.
I can't promise I will give it a try, but I will. I will look into it. Okay. Moving forward. So I will move on to a few questions that we have that are outside of, I guess, your dashboard. What are your take or any predictions about hiring in the data field in the GDA after the curve finally has been flattened? I mean, this is your area of interest, your area of expertise. What do you think?
Yeah. So I can speak at least to the trends we're seeing at SharpestMinds, because we deal directly with getting mentees hired. That's how we make money. It's our core business, and we definitely seen a drop in hires across the board. I think that's a definite trend of this pandemic is sort of a recession, less hiring.
Yeah.
But the companies that are affected the most are sort of the brick and mortar companies, the ones with a storefront or a physical location that rely on in-person traffic. So those companies have really taken a hit and are not even just hiring, but also laying off some folks. But then again, like a lot of software as a service companies and fully remote companies are still plugging along and still hiring. I think once this pandemic ends, things will return mostly to normal, I would hope. One trend that might stick around is remote work. I think a lot of companies are probably learning now that like remote work isn't that bad and things can still get done. So I'm actually hoping we'll see more of that post-pandemic, because the ability to work from wherever you want is an amazing freedom, and there's no reason a lot of us knowledge workers have to be going into an office every day.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's definitely going to be a trend that's going to be more coming along more. So, and what keeps you going or what keeps you motivated during this time? Like, I mean, are you used to working remotely though? Like, is that your usual culture?
Yeah, SharpestMinds has always been like half remote. I had a schedule where I would work from home in the morning and then walk to an office in the afternoon, and that was like the perfect combination for me. So luckily I was sort of well equipped to handle this transition to like staying from home, but it's still a struggle, right? It's really hard to mix your environments. Your work life and your home life are all of a sudden in the same place. Yeah. And it's hard for your body to adapt to these things. And even I'm struggling a bit with it, like working from home all day, every day. So some of the things I've been doing are ensuring that my environments for working and home and relaxing are as different as possible. So I'm lucky enough to have a little den here that I can leave as my workspace. But if you don't have that, it's good to make sure you actually dress up and like you're going to work. Like, don't stay in your pajamas. Make sure you separate your relaxing time from your work time. Like, set clear boundaries. One thing that's easy to slip into is you get up, you're still in your pajamas, you start working, and it's like noon, and I did not eat breakfast or shower yet. That was me in my first job. It was fully remote. Like, I had no sense of boundaries between the two, and that's an easy path to burnout. So generally, I think one thing to note is it's a really crazy time, and I'm finding it hard to focus. I mean, there's a global pandemic going on, and that's very distracting. So it's okay to be not as productive as you used to be. That's something I have to remind myself regularly these days. And yeah, make time to unplug. That's something also I'm trying to keep a habit of. So we all have to social distance and physically distance, but if you can, I think it's still good to get outside and go for walks. Just avoid other people. So I've been doing that recently. I leave my phone at home and go for a stroll, and that's been great for keeping my sanity.
You know, I agree with that. Like, I think one thing that we do need to keep in mind is that, yes, we're working from home, but also with the added factor of working through a pandemic. And I think we just kind of like lose sense of that because it's not just simply working from home. We're trying to work from home in the midst of all of this.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, I think that's it for us. We'll go through the slider questions, and I am going to pass it over to Asha to see if anyone votes in.
Yeah, just a reminder to everybody who has a question and want us to ask this to Russell, please thumbs up whatever the question that sounds good, so that it comes up on the top of the list, and also post your questions. So let me take few questions from Slido. So yeah, the first very popular question is how often your dashboard gets refreshed, and also if they want to see the scripts while whatever you had used for creating the dashboard, where can they go find it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I basically am manually running a script every day to update it. Ontario pushes new numbers at 10:30 a.m. daily. And so soon after that, I just make sure I run my script to sync with the DB, and I'm updated by 11 a.m. every day. If you want to see my code, it's on my GitHub. I can share a link. I don't know. I don't know the best way to share that. You can Google me and find my GitHub, and it's COVID Ontario or something like that.
Yeah, I think like I think in the beginning of the presentation that Deepika said, just Google your name, they'll find everything.
Yeah, and feel free to send me a message on any platform that works for you that I'm on. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. The second question that I want to take is, okay, one person asked, want to just confirm that Metabase is an open source platform. So yeah,
yes, yeah, Metabase is completely open source. Yeah.
Yes, and there is also one question which seems to be very popular. How long did it take Russell to grow his beard?
Good question. I've sort of always had this beard. I've lost a sense of time. So I don't have a great answer for you. This might be a month or two of growth.
Okay, so people who wanted this question to be answered, I hope you keep your fingers crossed for 1 or 2 months. Okay, then there are like a lot of questions. Just give me a minute. Okay, there is one more question which says, can Metabase do dual access charts? So I think basically we can translate it more like the capabilities like the softwares like Tableau or some other popular softwares give. Is it all available? Those options are all available on Metabase. I think that was what the intention is here.
Yeah, Metabase, it's pretty feature rich, and they're constantly developing on it. So I think a new version just came out the other day with some new features. So yeah, you can do things like dual plots. You can add multiple sets of data to the same axes, and make a lot of pretty things.
Yeah, and one more question popular is, the current dashboard is with respect to Toronto. Are you planning to expand it to other cities?
The next thing I'm hoping to do is provide more insight into each public health unit within Ontario, and so maybe not on the city level, but on the public health unit level. And so, for example, there's a few different units that cover the GTA, but say Northern Ontario only has a couple public health units covering the swath of it. There's just less population up there. So I'm hoping to do more of that, but I think I'll stick to Ontario. There's other folks who've done a lot of their own good dashboards for their own provinces, and there's some other good ones for Canada as well.
There is, just give me a minute. I'm going through, there are like a lot of questions. Like there's one more question which says, why are you updating MongoDB manually?
I thought about automating it, but it's a daily thing, and I just have to press 2 keystrokes to run the script.
Okay.
So that's been good enough for now. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is one question which also asks about you being transitioning from physics major to programming. How easy or difficult was it?
It had its challenges for sure. One of the key things I had to sort of change about myself was getting comfortable like using pre-built solutions. So one thing that happens to you when you're a physicist is you develop something called cocky physicist syndrome, is what me and my teammates call it. But the idea that like you should be able to like derive everything from scratch. And because that's sort of what physics is. Like you need to like build up from the ground. Like here are the basic laws, and you slowly build up a theory based on that. And you know, as a grad student, when I was writing software, like that kind of attitude made me really uneasy using, say, third-party tools or code someone else built, because I didn't fully understand what was going on under the hood, and that made me uncomfortable. But as soon as I started working as a programmer, I realized like I can't do that anymore. I really need to be able to use things that are already there for this purpose. Like don't reinvent the wheel, get comfortable not knowing everything about the tools you're using. And so that sort of mindset shift was crucial. And I've basically been learning by doing since. So if you want to learn to code, the best way to do it is to code. And so build things, don't hold back, drop the perfectionism. Like with this dashboard, right? Like I could have done a lot of things. I could have automated it. I could have etc. Features on features on features, but I just wanted to get something out, something to look at.
Yeah.
Get going, and like, where the phrase would be, put the perfection aside and just get started with something.
Exactly. So adopt what we call in the startup world like an MVP mindset, minimum viable product. So get something out. Doesn't have to be perfect. But just get something done and out there, and iterate from there. And so that's what happened with this dashboard. Like originally it was just going to be this scrappy thing for me to check the plot every day, but people kept requesting more and more plots and more information. And so that's how this thing's developed.
Yeah. That's great. There's one more interesting question regarding Metabase. People want to know how secure the data is, and like when they publish the data, what basically the security around Metabase.
Good question. So Metabase basically connects to whatever database server you've got running already. I can't speak to any specific security reasons. As far as I know, it's fairly secure. As secure as like having your web app connect to a database.
Okay.
Sorry, poor answer, but I don't have the sort of knowledge of the security of Metabase.
Okay. So we are almost out of time. There are a few more questions that probably I will take. So yeah, there's one person who wants to know, if you want to automate something, what would be your go-to tool?
Interesting. Automate something like updating this database on a frequent.
Maybe refresh your dashboard refresh. Let's consider that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd probably stick with some like simple cron job, or maybe use a Python scheduler script. Though I tend to like lean towards no code solutions. If I can do something without writing a line of code, that's great. And so I know Heroku has a scheduling feature that you can spin up pretty easily. So since I'm deploying this dashboard on Heroku, I might end up using some built-in Heroku add-ons for it.
Okay, so Heroku has a built-in scheduler. Sorry, I'm not aware of them. So.
yeah. Similarly to how like AWS has something, and the other platforms.
Okay. Cool. Well, what else? Where else? There is one more question, and like, what would be your advice for somebody who's starting their career on data science? What would be the audiobooks or ebooks or any great books that you would ask them to start with based on their expertise level? Sorry, I tried to combine 3-4 questions.
Got it. My go-to suggestion for anyone getting into data science is Fast AI. So that's fast.ai. Bunch of free courses kept up to date, taught by a guy named Jeremy Howard, who's an absolute whiz and a fantastic teacher. And what I really like about those courses, they've got a few now, one specifically for deep learning, one for basic data science, and I think some intro to the math and stuff. So as far as I know, like everything you need is there, fast.ai. And then my other advice is build things. Like you can read books all you want and learn the theory all you want, but you got to get your hands dirty and start building a project. So find a data set, find a problem you're super passionate about, and build it. Because when you build something, you end up making, thousands of tiny decisions. How will I store my data? What tools am I going to use? And being a data scientist in the wild is essentially being responsible for making those decisions. And the only way you can get good at them is with practice. So just get your hands dirty and start coding. And fast AI. That's my advice.
That's a great advice. Thank you.
I think, we have a time check. We are at 6:58 right now. So yeah, I just want to highlight a couple of things from the Google Hangouts chat. There's someone, Mazhar Ameli, I'm sorry if I just killed your name, but he says he's the UX design lead at Metabase, and he really loved, Russell, that you created this dashboard using Metabase. And he says, if you want, you can reach out to him. I'm going to pass on his details to you later on. Just gonna send everyone. I'm gonna send you a message about it. One question we had. Okay, I promise this is the last question. Sorry to take over. This person has been persistent, so we will give it to him. So they want to know basically the business model at SharpestMinds. What percentage of the salary, approximately, I guess? He wants to know what percentage of the salary you take, or basically a brief of your business model. Thanks.
Yeah, it differs mentorship to mentorship, because it's one-on-one. The deal is basically decided by the mentor and mentee when they decide to start a mentorship. But total, it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of your first year salary.
Okay.
And if you have any more questions, just send me a message on Twitter, LinkedIn, email. Yeah, I'm open.
Awesome. that actually brings us to the end of this session. We are at 7 p.m. I think this was a pretty interactive event. I know a lot of people had questions, but this is virtual. We are still trying out different ways to handle the audience interaction. We are still figuring things out. So to everyone who is still here, we are sorry if we didn't take your questions, but if you have any other suggestions about how we can improve, please feel free to send us a message. You can contact us on using the email ID on our website or on meetup.com, or just send us a message on LinkedIn. We are everywhere. Even if we don't see it immediately, we will at some point, we will be seeing your message, and we will take everything into consideration. So thanks a lot. And Russell, thanks for spending time with us. And I think we will be seeing a lot of Metabase use in our upcoming hackathons, especially since this was open source. Awesome. Please, let us know if you have something that could help us too, if you have any other suggestions. And with that, I think I'm going to end this session. Unless someone has something really important, this session ends right now. I will prepare a better sign-off